Starting, all attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Coleman Report Live, July 10th. Hopefully, everybody had a good weekend and a good safe 4th of July to everyone. John, we spoke with you last week. We had a great conversation. Really loved the in-depth interview that Bob and you did. It was captivating, and I learned a lot from that. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Well, thank you.
We posted it on YouTube. You can go back and check it out. It was about a 15-minute interview on last Monday. So let's get into what we're going to talk about. We got a big week, Lance. You and I are doing a bunch of stuff. First off, there's the new SOP webinar on Thursday. Sign up for that. That's the 5056 one. It's hard to keep track of all these new SOPs, but this is for the SBLCs and the regulatory stuff for that. Yeah, go ahead, Lance.
Yeah, it's for all participant lenders. I mean, if you want to become an SBA lender, the rules on how to do that are in here. If you want to be one of the new SBLCs that are supposedly, I think they're taking applications as we speak for those new SBLCs, but the rules for applying and the rules for operating an SBLC are in there. If you want to sell loans on the secondary market, that information's in there, as well as the rules in regards to CDCs. Also, SBA's oversight rules are in there. So it's good for everybody in the SBA lending community to become aware of the 5056-1. Now, guys, it used to be inside the 5010, and SBA split out part of it and made it a new SOP. But it's important information.
Absolutely. Also, we are going to do, I don't know if you guys have figured this out, but you can go to youtube.com/Coleman Report, and we are streaming live. We're doing a little pre-show before the quarterly Connect call tomorrow. That starts at 3 p.m. Eastern, but we're going to be live at 2:50 for about 10 minutes just to discuss what's going on. The other two SOPs that are effective August 1st, we're going to be talking about those as well. So tune into that, and then we're going to go straight over to the quarterly Connect call. So there's a lot coming out from SBA, and the last administrative stuff that I can ask you about, John, is there's a House meeting with the administrator and the OIG. The Inspector General Hannibal, Mike Ware, on Thursday as well, July 13th. That was announced. They are invited to talk about the big report. They're discussing the $200 billion big number in potential fraud from the pandemic relief. But we look forward to those comments as well. So
that'll be interesting hearing. And we were just discussing before the show, the SBA proposal to sort of, I guess, move on might be a good way to put it. Move on from some of the smaller dollar loans that probably do contain some fraud, but they're all small dollar loans. So there's a lot of merit to that, but it has gained very little traction in Congress. I very few people are willing to say anything good about that proposal. Even though there's a lot of realism built into it.
Well, John, and one of the questions that I have is, and I asked this question, said nobody's really talking about it. How much money are we going to spend in investigative effort, prosecuting those individuals that are caught, people filling up our jails over small dollar PPP loans? At one point, SBA had proposed just to kind of wipe the slate clean on smaller PPP loans. And while I strongly agree that people who commit fraud need to be punished for that fraud, I also am a dollar and cents person. And when you look at, we spent, $10 billion trying to collect $5 billion, that doesn't make sense. The other challenge that I would bring up, anybody who knows the 2021 PPP loans very well, know that many of those borrowers do not have significant financial resources, and they probably have spent their PPP money. So I don't know exactly what you're going to collect on those. Now, the 2020 stuff, guys, the guys bought big houses and boats and cars, and they could seize that. But what are you going to do? Seize a bank account with $20 in it? I mean, I'm just kind of being funny about this, but the reality is I'm concerned about how much money is going to be spent going after small dollar PPP fraud.
And also, correct me if I'm wrong, Lance, because you're by far more of an expert in this than me, but when they were talking about those 2021 rules, they were pretty wide open, particularly as they were, involved small contractors and sole proprietors, et cetera. I think they might have a hard time defining fraud.
Oh, I think the 2021 PPP, when they opened it up for Schedule C filers, independent contractors, and others, all of us who have been in SBA lending, those borrowers are not SBA 7A borrowers. The typical SBA 7A borrower, they are very different. So it's and guys, every day of my life, something new comes up in terms of working through this. I mean, I got an email this morning that I had a big conference call with some of my people that we were talking about. Is this something else we're going to have to start dealing with? Because like all SBA loans, once it's done, it's not done. SBA has the right to pull these things up for review even after they've been forgiven, or even after the guarantee purchase has occurred. So, what additional requirements are lenders going to have in this process to vet out all of the fraud that occurred? So, I mean, I've got tons of questions, guys.
Big week. Again, YouTube live. It's youtube.com/Coleman Report for our live coverage of all that stuff. Also, SBA put up this great training site, and they list all of their old quarterly connect calls. So check that out. I can send the link to anyone that sends me an email. So let's get into John's story. John, you wrote this published this morning. It's about KeyCorp working with Lendistry, a Los Angeles-based CDFI. Give us what you're reporting on, and give us your take on this.
Well, Lendistry is going to become a bigger name in the SBA, so I thought that I'm very interested in Lendistry. They're not a bank, but they partner very closely with a number of banks. So they're about the closest thing you can get to being a bank without actually having a bank charter. But I guess in real terms, they're a CDFI that focuses on small business lending. They are now an SBA lender. They acquired the license that I believe Newtek had. When Newtek became a bank, they no longer needed that license, and so Lendistry was able to acquire it. So they're not involved in this new program that SBA has with non-bank lenders. They are a they have one of the 14 licenses. But more importantly, they got a $20 million line of credit with KeyCorp. Generally, that's bottom line is that's going to support additional lending, small business lending by their by Lendistry. One of the things I thought that was most interesting in this, that interested me the most, is obviously the money will help Lendistry, but where KeyCorp is potentially can benefit from this is they get exposure to asset classes that they probably couldn't deal with in a conventional bank loan. And maybe, Lance, you can talk about whether this is doable through SBA, and maybe it might be doable through SBA down the line if more non-banks, if more small business companies are added through the new rules. But two that they talked about are companies that do business on platforms, social media platforms, Amazon, and there may be others, but Amazon is the really big one. And those, can develop into larger companies. And the other one is the airport vendors. And they talked about the technical reasons why airport vendors, it's tough through a conventional bank loan to do that. And, Key is a very, they do a lot of SBA lending already, but, those are asset classes that probably they don't have a lot of exposure to. Banks don't have a lot of exposure to. And, through this, and through Lendistry, they can learn about that. I wonder if, just a question to Lance, if those are asset classes that are even bankable through SBA.
They can be, but an SBA 7A loan is kind of a mix. So much of SBA lending is put on prudent lending, which means you're going to do what you would do on a similar size non-SBA loan. And, the question is, will the bank do that type of lending? And in most cases, the answer is no. So this certainly would open up new markets. And this is in line with what the administrator wants, getting more money out to more underserved markets. So what Lendistry and Key is doing, Key Bank, is in line with what the administrator's asking for, and wanting SBA to become, getting more money out to more underserved markets. So I think this is going to do that.
Excellent. You can find that article on American Banker. And John, good stuff. Last is we're gonna bring up an old but oldie but goodie, their restaurant revitalization fund. I'm sure we haven't heard that in a while. There's a new report that came out. I'm going to bring Delaney in and tell us why the report came out right now and what's going on with the technicalities, Delaney.
Well, I believe this report was released secondary to their other report that they just released about 200 billion estimated fraud in the PPP and EIDL programs. So I'm sure they're starting to go through some of those other programs, like you said, the less mentioned one, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, potentially the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. But in this particular report, one of their partners informed them that many of these applications had unapproved or unverified information, and there was about 1,000 different fraudulent applications. And while the SBA did prevent about half of this from going out, they 2 years later still have not reviewed about 2,000 applications. So the OIG is bringing that to attention again.
This report just reminds me, guys, of the magnitude of the pandemic relief money through SBA. The challenge is, I saw the other day, SBA with PPP did 10 years worth of lending in a very short period of time. And then the restaurant revitalization program and the EIDL program were similar. I think that some of these fraudulent situations like this could have been resolved if there would have been more time. But the problem is there wasn't more time. Restaurants in particular needed money now because, in many instances they were closed to inside dining and all they had was carry out and delivery. So, this is a pretty significant report, but it still reminds me, huge dollars, huge number of applications in a very short time period to get it there. That's not an excuse, but it's just a fact.
One thing the report doesn't, a report like this won't touch on, and I understand that because it's sort of outside the scope of what they're trying to report or the information they're trying to derive in the report. But there was a lot of non-fraudulent lending there, and it propped up and helped a lot of restaurants. And it's important to remember that. And that, as you said, Lance, given the time constraints and everything that possibly you have to a certain extent accept that was fraud. Unfortunately, was a cost of doing business if you wanted to put money out there and get it to legitimate business people really, really fast.
Well, I think, John, and Joe, one of the things, and Delaney, one of the things that I see here, and you're exactly right, John, how many closed restaurants would we have had there not been things like PPP idle and the restaurant revitalization program? I venture to say probably half the restaurants in the country
Hmm.
might not have made it.
Yeah. Well, good stuff, Delaney. Let's recap. We're going to do Thursday webinar on the 56, and there's just a ton of stuff going on this week. So send us an email, sign up for this, and I will take care of that today. And we look forward to the quarterly Connect call tomorrow. And we are going to be broadcasting live on our YouTube channel. So excellent show, guys. Thanks for being here, John and Lance. And this concludes today's Coleman Report Live. Thank you. Have a good one.
Have a good day.
Bye.